Welcome to the Stop Down Photography Podcast, episode 48. I'm Scott Davenport. Today's topic is photography is a state of mind. Hi, welcome. Thanks for joining me today. I'm glad to be back with you for another chat about photography, this passion we share. And in today's episode, let's take one more step on our never-ending journey of photography. Each week when I sit down and make notes for the podcast, I look at my idea board. I keep a running list of show topics, half-baked ideas, random thoughts, sometimes just a few words. And over time, some of those ideas grow and become a podcast episode. I also reflect on the past week and my own photographic activities. Did I have an experience with the camera I should share? A lesson I learned or a discovery I made that I think is worth a podcast episode. Maybe I read an industry article that sparked a thought worth exploring. Those tend to end up on the idea board, actually. But this week, as I reflected on the past 7 days, I noticed something interesting. I felt very connected with my photography. So why do a podcast about that? It's because of the other interesting thing about the past week. I haven't picked up a camera, not once. If you enjoy today's podcast, please share it with a friend, share it on social media with your camera club, and if you can, please leave a rating on Apple Podcasts. Fresh, current ratings help others find out about the show. I haven't ventured out with my camera in more than a week, not since my sunrise failure, which I shared that story last week in episode 47. And some of that is due to, let's say, time, personal commitments, the Thanksgiving holiday here in the U.S. Some is due to choice. I've chosen to spend more of my active photo time finishing a book project. But the past week has been photographically rich without my camera. Working on the book has me delving into older photos. I see older work. The stories behind the photos come flooding back. I found more hidden gems in my library, photos that I took and I dismissed back in the day, and now I see something else in them, some opportunity I hadn't seen before. I also got a lot of questions this week from photographers, and I like questions because they make me stop and think. One question that comes to mind was about adding a bokeh and a blur to a portrait after the fact, in post-processing. You don't have fast glass, a wide aperture, and you want to enhance the portrait somehow by softening the background. Well, that made me stop and think about optics. What happens in the physical world with a shallow depth of field? How quickly or slowly does focus taper off? And then that led to thinking about how to simulate that in post-processing, when played with software a little bit. And that meant going back into my library to find a portrait to work with, and that led me to family photos, and I'm connected back to this prayer thing I just said, finding new joy in old work. So I'm having all this fun with photography this week, yet no camera. How can that be? For me, it sums up like this. Photography isn't defined by frame counts and keeper rates. Gaps in your camera usage are normal. However, photography can, and usually is for me, interwoven into daily life. We'll encounter scenes and take mental snapshots. Things that are not photographic at all will somehow, for us, relate to photography in some way. Visual art is an outlook on the world. Photography is a state of mind. A bit of studio news this week. I mentioned the book project. This is an update to Photo Raw Essentials to cover the new features in the 2021 release. That was a common question I got from photographers this week. Is there going to be an update? And if you listen to this podcast, you know that there is, and it's progressing really well. The copy is all done, all the text is written, and it's screenshots and artwork and layout, and that's sometimes a little easier going, except maybe the layout part of it. If you've ever done a book project where you have to have images and text that need to be close to one another, the layout of a book always throws you a curveball or two. The text wraps around in the wrong way, or a section is starting toward the bottom of a page and you want the photo to be toward the top. It's the nature of the beast, but nevertheless, it's going well. I'm targeting mid-December to have the digital version of the book complete and available, and then I'll start working on the other pieces for a full-blown print edition. As I do each week, I want to thank the members of the Patreon community for your support. It is what makes this podcast possible. And related to the book project, thank you for all the thoughts around the cover and the design and the title. I shared a couple of mock-ups of the Photo Raw Essentials book cover, and we've been talking about it and what makes sense, what doesn't make sense, just a whole variety of questions and different perspectives have come up. It's been really valuable. And these are a trusted group of folks. I really do value your opinions, your input, and thank you very much for helping shape what will be this book. Before the end of this year, we will have this book done. If you're interested in learning more about the Patreon community, want to join in on the conversation, check the show notes. There is a link there to the community. There's also a support the show button on all pages of stopdownpodcast.com where you can learn more. And that's going to wrap up this week's episode. A short one, and you probably know why. I've got to get back to that keyboard and keep working on that book project. But if you enjoyed the podcast, please let me know. You can reach me directly using the contact form on stopdownpodcast.com. Love to hear from you, your thoughts on the show, ideas, or if you've got a question, I'd love to hear from you. Until next time, my name is Scott Davenport. Have fun.